Okay, we can start. Welcome to a role meeting. Please be aware of the note well. And
Yep. So
want to
these days the IETF is putting emphasis on code of conduct. That's why we have an extra slide for that. So the IETF and we here in the role working group expect to see discussions about ideas, technical discussions, but we expect everybody to be treated with dignity, decency, and respect. And that's even written in the guidelines for conduct. So this is what we are striving to achieve in this working group and in the IETF in general. So please be aware of that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So about the online meetings tip, please, we encourage to use headset if possible to reduce the noise and the echo. Thank you. Okay, this is the meeting materials. Please, if you can volunteer to help us with the minutes, we will be very thankful. And
So
okay, this is
yeah,
yes.
who volunteers? We need volunteers. Okay, I can see
So
4 online. Michael, Pascal.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I see one guest connected. You need to connect through data tracker to be allowed to edit the minutes. But thank you very much for volunteering.
Yes, thank you very much. And this is our agenda. We are going to start with the working group status. Then we are going to discuss about the IETF RIPL mode of operation. Then Pascal will present the multicast registration as a 6-law document. And then we will discuss about our current open issues, DAO projections, failure under router, and the enrollment priority. Okay, some objections, comments? Okay, thank you. About our state of active internet draft, we are going to discuss 2 documents, DAO projection enrollment priority, and about IETF RIPL. We have 1 document submitted to the ISG for publications, and MOPEX capabilities were submitted recently, and they are work in progress. We hope to that we can go to as well at some point to working group last call for MOPEX. Then we're going to as well discuss about this failure detection of the router by Conrad. And then as well, there is a new version of storing root acknowledge. So please review and consider to have it as a work item in the working group. We have to discuss about that and return to work because we understand that the COVID situation has put some difficulties to complete some work. So we are starting again to get back to what we left. Okay. About the expert internet draft, we assume that those are going to be continued later. The information, these modifications about Young and multicast SPIA. So this is our milestone that were achieved, that are done, basically through an RFC. So about the current milestones, okay, about the first item, we have to update the date. We still have work on done, so this they have to be updated. For the second one, we have split it in 2 working items, 2 documents, MOPEX and capabilities. So as well, they have to be updated. I don't know.
So yeah, what the authors think would be an appropriate date for submission of MOPEX on the one hand and capabilities on the other hand. I think that's maybe Raoul or the co-authors.
Yeah, Raúl.
So With regards to MOPEX and capabilities, I think for MOPEX there is just one action item which is open. It's
Mhm.
already listed on the issue list in the GitHub repo that we have, the role working group. But apart from that, there are no other pending items, so to speak. We would really love to have some targeted reviews to this document. Already Dominic had provided his review based on which the last major update had happened.
Okay.
So, do you mean you could work on it in the next few months? But as we're going to update the milestones, we don't want to do that every month, and pushing things further and further. So, what would be a reasonable milestone for that, according to you?
X is an easier one to handle. The capability is maybe we can take it up later. I would say even though there is one single work item, but that's a call that our working group should be taking. I'll maybe float that question on the working group again. Dominic, you've already raised that in the email, I guess, but we are yet to receive any response there. But I would say design-wise, complexity-wise, MOPEX is much lesser complex than capabilities. So I would say that can be taken.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, which month?
MOPEX.
I could not understand. Yes.
The months, well, I didn't say the specific months, but
Ah.
we can if we can, maybe I'll send a gentle reminder for that one particular question that was raised by
Oh,
Dominic a few weeks back.
okay.
You're
Thank
coming
you.
in quite low,
Pascal?
Raoul, actually. If you can increase your mic level or speak closer to
Oh,
mic
I'm so sorry.
compared to the others.
Maybe how is it now?
Yes, I'm
Sorry
sorry, that's
for
what I wanted to say as well, because I'm trying to take notes, but I really cannot hear what Raoul is saying.
how is it now? Sorry about
It's
that, folks.
Uh, It's better.
better. Still a bit
It's
weak,
better.
but better.
Okay. No, let me just repeat what I said. There was one open question on the MOPEX
Mhm.
that we have in the issue in the role working group repo, GitHub repo. That is the only open action item that the working groups needs to take a call on. With that done, MOPEX is fairly a simple design, is fairly a simple uh, document because it does not introduce much any new messages. On the other hand, capabilities document introduces new messages, so it might take a little bit more longer. Thus, I would say that we can handle MOPEX first and keep capabilities for later.
Okay, great. Thank you. About DAO projection, we suggest to have it 2022 is our current kind of priority. We are going to have to review more from Michael and Ari, and then I think we are ready for working room last call. Yeah, Peter is here. No, I don't think so. We have to take this with discussion with the author. Enrollment priority. We need one review more, so we suggest March next year. These modifications, Dominic, do you have some? November
Yeah,
2022.
yeah, that's probably going to be end of next year. I need to resume work. That's going to happen in the spring, then all the usual delays, before submission.
Okay, great, thank you. And then multicast would be this is between is a work that will happen between Pascal and Karsten, so maybe we can ask them by email or if they want to comment here. Yeah.
I'm not moving on with this one. So this one's recasting, but the multicast work that we've started so far is told we need to get more interest on beer, etc. For now,
Okay.
no, this is not the focus.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting us know. Okay. Okay, we have open tickets like well, here. So please, dear authors, check your tickets. If you consider your a document close to working group last call, check your tickets and close them if they are solved or updated accordingly. Thank you. We have the two systems, the report in the track from the IETF and the GitHub. We aim to move to GitHub, but still we keep both. Okay, next topic, it's ODB REPL. So we are currently in version 11. We are working in the discuss comments from the ISG. But as well, we want to bring here the conversations about the mode of operations and if this document should obsolete the 6997. So to give a background, we have in the current document the mode of operation 5. So in here we have two options. We continue with the mode of operation 5, but we have available only 2, 6 and 5. So it's going to keep one left, but if this non-story mode multicast use 6, there are not going to be nothing left for future work. The other option is to use the one from the draft 6997, mode of operation 4. This document, this RFC is experimental, P2P REPL. We are not aware of the implementation. So as far as we know, it's not widely implemented. We know that exists an implementation in Riot operating system, but we have not got any comments into the mailing list. So please, if you are aware of some deployments, let us know. Implementation, let us know by the mailing list. The other question, if this draft ODB REPL should obsolete P2P REPL, and if we go forward with this option, we should clarify that both implementations cannot coexist on the same network, right? And what happened, I mean, if they overlapped. So we want to know the discussions, the opinion of the working group on this matter. Yes. Yes,
Well,
Pascal?
yes, the overlapping is a big word because to get two nodes to talk together, you need to voluntarily give them, the network keys so they can see each other. I mean, it does not happen by mistake or by magic. All those networks are secured at layer 2. So really, it would be very, very surprising that someone comes in and deploys nodes with two different protocols on the same networks. So it really will not happen. We have to explicitly say that it's not compatible with 6997 and that they should not be deployed in the same network. But really, it will not happen by mistake. And people have to configure keys. There's no magic. It's not just because they are in the same place.
Thank you very much. What do you think about obsoleting P2P 6997?
I'm fine with obsoleting. The reason is, as you said, there is no non-deployment, and having two options would divide the market, quote unquote. So if people decide to go for a reactive protocol, I think it's good that they have one clear option and not to choose between two. And the 6997 was experimental. Now we are doing a standard track. That's exactly what we mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Based on my understanding, all the use cases that are applicable to P2P can be fulfilled with ODB REPL. So there is no a specific use case that should need P2P and not be possible. Yes, Alvaro?
So
we had I had asked the same question when this draft first came to me about obsoleting P2P. There is one of the applicability RFCs that I think recommends using P2P. I think there's a should there, use P2P or something like that, or maybe it's a must, I forget. If we're going to go that way, we're going to need to update that, right? So that, and I understand there are no implementations, but we need to just update that so that there's no pointing to something that doesn't exist anymore. I need to remember if there are parts of AODV that point at procedures in P2P, because it uses some, not exactly the same thing, but there are some things that are similar. If that is the case, then we need to specify them in the draft, right? Because if we're going to obsolete the other one, we can't refer to an obsolete document. So if we're going to do that, then we need to do a little bit more work. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just, we just need to be a little bit more careful in what we're doing there.
Thank you.
It's
Michael?
the building and home RFC 87733 that talks about P2P. I was pretty sure, and then I looked, and I'm right. I think we can relatively safely say that I don't think that it's been implemented or deployed in any significant amount, or even any insignificant amount. But I understand what you're saying. We need to kind of tell people, if they are going to implement it, how they would do it with AODV instead. I think that's what your point is. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. And right. So I'm not sure or I was hoping that the update to that applicability statement would just be like a one-line thing of, instead of using P2P, use AODV. I don't know if there are other parts of the profile that we would need to change there. But yes, we just need to go look.
That sounds like a good thing. It would say updates 7733 and then say something else about this. Yeah.
Right. It may just be a one-sentence thing. It may be more. I'm hoping just a one sentence, right?
Yeah, 7733 just says these are the right parameters, and so you need to give the other parameters for AODV. It doesn't say anything about really how you use it. It's not really, yeah, well, okay. Right. So it sounds like we just need a paragraph or so. That sounds enough.
Yes.
So it seems we need to do some homework if we go that route and see what the easiest path. Obsoleting would be nice if it's not too costly in terms of process. So who's willing to examine that?
I'll take a look at that next week and see what I can do.
Great, thanks.
So it would have been nice if Charlie or someone would have been here. I don't know if any of the other authors are here or not.
Conflicts?
The other part of this is that this document already went through IESG review.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sitting there, right, with a couple of discusses. I need to think about this because we might need to pull it back and pull it back from the IESG queue and send it back to the working group because it may be more significant change. I hate doing that because, I mean, this document already left the working group like 2 years ago, but it's just been slow on getting revisions and other
right,
things.
But
like
apart from saying it would use MOP number 4, how would that document, AODV REPL, be affected? It would trigger.
Well, MOP number 4, and then we're obsoleting P2P and updating some other documents.
That would trigger more work, but
and then
the document itself
P2P
would not be changed, would it?
Well, yes, it would, because now it would be obsoleting other things and changing other stuff. So I guess what I want to see is probably what the scope of the changes, before I guess I make a decision of whether we need to pull it back or not, because since we're in the middle of the IESG review, right, I don't want to just pull it under people's feet, right? And maybe all we do is ask them to consider it again or something without having to run through the whole last call process and everything else. But let's look at the scope of the changes.
Okay.
And then we can figure that out.
Actually, Ines, you
Okay.
you haven't gone through the last slide on this, and maybe the audience has now understood we're leaning toward going to MOB 4 for AODV report. And so we asked a question on mailing lists. We got a few answers, not many, but most of them were in favor of reusing MOB 4. I think mostly the working group members are conscious of the few MOB values left until we have MOBX. And so this is the occasion if somebody strongly objects to using MOB 4. And as Alvaro said, if we agree that MOB 4 is the way where we want to go, we'll investigate exactly how much work is involved and what the process is for AODV report.
Okay. We will create an issue to track all these, and we can specify, for example, with documents reference to 6997, so we know how much this document is affect the other documents. Okay. Yes. We will do
that. I'm hearing no strong objection right now.
Let's see.
We'll issue a last warning on the mailing list and do the homework to investigate exactly what is involved by reusing MOB 4.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay, good. So we have 3 minutes more. Pascal, do you want to go with the multicast?
Okay. Well, this basically, let me introduce this. It's a fairly recent draft that was published. Let me share video, maybe. Okay. So this is a fairly recent draft that was proposed at 6LO, but really it is both a 6LO and a role work. Because it does basically what 8505, which is a 6LO RFC, does for ND, and at the same time it does what 9010, 9010, I'm sorry, does for REPL. Remember, that's the REPL unaware leaf. So in the case of the two existing documents, it's about using 6LO ND to register an IPv6 address. And so that's 8505, and using REPL to basically report that external address to the root using non-storing mode. Here, what we're doing is we're extending 8505 for multicast and anycast address. And at the same time, we are providing the operation in REPL to transport those addresses. So there was a REPL multicast support for storing mode. There was nothing for non-storing, and Karsten was really asking for something to happen there. And there was nothing for anycast anyway. So next slide, please. So that's the brief intro. Okay, so basically, just for the sake of memory, here is the family of RFCs which come with 6LO ND. Started with 6775, which was extended and partly replaced by 8505. So with this, you can basically register using a unicast exchange an address to your router, and that has the good capability with 8505 to abstract whatever routing happens in the network. In our case, it's REPL, but it could be MIPL, it could be neighbor discovery proxy, and that's what RFC 8929 does. There's also EVPN. There's a draft at EVPN for injecting address IP address / MAC addresses as route type 5 in EVPN. And there is Rift as well. So there are many environments where we can actually learn from this abstract agnostic interface, which address exists on the network and what their MAC address is, and inject that in whatever backend, be it REPL, Rift, EVPN, etc. But that was only for unicast. So there are two things which are happening right now at 6LoW. One is to extend the support of the 6LBR, so it can be used as a registrar that you can look up when you have to find an address MAC mapping. Instead of sending an NS lookup as a multicast broadcast message, you can effectively do that as unicast. So that's one piece of work which is happening at 6LoW. But for our interest here, the most important thing is there is this 6LoW multicast registration that I'm discussing today. Next slide, please. So why did we create it and why did we go through swiftly? There is an external SDO called the WISAN Alliance that defines in the FAN working group, Field Area Network working group, define how REPL, 6LoWPAN, etc. are being used for WISAN applications. That's 15.4G, typically for metering applications. And so far they were using unicast, but they started seeing the need for multicast. And for that, they wondered how to achieve it and realized that implementing MRD would be very hard for their very constrained devices on the one hand, and requires to listen to multicast. And the low power battery operated devices are not friendly to broadcast in any fashion. That's why we did 6LoWPAN in the first place. But the same need appeared for multicast. So the suggestion was, oh, those devices already do 8505. Why don't they use 8505 as well to basically indicate that they are listeners to a multicast address, or that they share an anycast address? And from the perspective of the 6LoWPAN device, 6LN, that's pretty much the same effort, whether it's unicast, anycast, or multicast. You just have to say, hey, I can accept a packet coming to that address on the one hand, and I need to signal in 8505, it's unicast, anycast, or multicast to be very clear that I know about it. And because anycast are not distinguishable from unicast, so you really have to signal it. A multicast is different. It always starts with Fox, so it could be inferred, and it was actually so far in REPL inferred from the address. But with this draft, we are effectively asking that the flags which say anycast and multicast are propagated in REPL, so the routing protocol is very clear what type of address and what behavior is expected. The 6LR has a little bit more work to do because compared to the unicast, it has to accept more than one registration for the same address, but with different rovers. So basically the tuple that identifies the registration becomes address, rover. And remember, the rover is what initially was the UI64. That's the unique ID of the device that can be actually proven using RSC 892. So this draft also extends unaware leaves, because now we can inject anycast and multicast addresses in REPL. So the same type of mapping, here is what comes in 8505, here is what goes out REPL, and the other way around. It's pretty much the same. I mean, there's very little difference. The difference is in the REPL behavior. And so we extend 6550 to express that behavior. And that's when the discussion on MOP4 came into play, because if AODV takes MOP5, it means that for this draft, we would be asking MOP6 for the non-storing multicast support. And that would mean taking the very last map available. So we said, hey, since 4 is not really used, maybe better take the path of leaving 6 alone and using 5 here and 4 for AODV REPL. That's really where it started. So same thing as the ERO option in 8505, we have 2 new flags. And this time they are in the REPL target option. And because Anycast was not present in MOP3, we also describe how Anycast works. So Anycast, in terms of ripple procedure, is really like multicast. Like you have to accept, remember, keep track of more than one origin. But in the case of Anycast, when you have a packet, you just forward it to one of them. Whereas with multicast, you forward to all your children in storing mode multicast. Next slide, please. Okay, and the big thing for this group, I guess, is that we introduced a new non-storing multicast mode of operation. And so this slide basically discusses what that mode does. So if the 6 LRs at the edge, which have 6 LN children attached to them, which register for multicast or Anycast address setting the flags in the arrow, will propagate that registration if, as in 8545, the R flag is set to say, please do the routing for me. So if R flag is set, 6LR will inject the address using a target option with the appropriate flag set. So in non-storing mode, that's going to be a unicast packet to the root, just like for a roll, a ripple and over leaf. And what happens now, because if it's multicast, in the case of multicast, the root will do what we call ingress replication, meaning that it will send a packet, a copy of the multicast packet, to each of the 6 LRs that have sent down. So each of the 6 LRs that have at least one child, which registered to a multicast address, for multicast string really, will receive a copy. And the copy will be tunneled exactly like for an external route. So it's going to be just an SRH to the 6LR. 6LR decapsulates the packet, and the decapsulated packet, instead of being unicast as usual, this time becomes a multicast packet. But for forwarding down the DODAG, it didn't make any difference. It was just a tunnel packet to the 6LR. So the root sends one to each 6LR, and each 6LR looks the destination and copies all the 6 LNs that subscribed. And note that in the mailing list, we discussed how to call this, and we agreed to call it subscription. So really, the 6 LN subscribe to multicast address when they register to a unicast or an Anycast address, just for terminology's sake. Because the multicast address does not belong to the device, where a unicast or even Anycast belongs. And then there is also obviously the support for Anycast, and for the support of Anycast, well, the root will just choose one of the 6 LRs and send the packet to him. So it's again the same unicast tunnel as usual, and inside there is a packet which is an Anycast packet, and so the 6LR will look for any of the devices that register to it and pick one. So it really looks like the support of unicast. You just pick one and send. The only little thing is if the layer 2 acts indicate that the 6LN does not receive the packet, the 6LR is still free to pick another 6LN that registered for the Anycast address and pass the packet to him. So after a few retries, the layer 3 is free to decide for an alternate 6LN. Next slide. And that's pretty much what is being said in more detail here. So as opposed to multicast, an Anycast address looks like a unicast address. So we effectively needed a flag to signal in Ripple and in ND that this is Anycast. Now, there's always the question of the backward compatibility for both cases. So basically, in the case of multicast, as soon as you see Fox in the address, you assume multicast anyway. For Anycast, the proceeding will be same as unicast until there is a common parent somewhere. In the case of storing mode, or the root in the case of non-storing mode, that sees multiple registrations. So if the common parent or the root sees multiple registrations for an address, if none of them has the flag for Anycast, it will just keep one. and the TID rule will apply, etc. And it will reject the others as duplicate. But if one of them bears the Anycast flag, it is to be understood that all the registrations are for Anycast, and then it will remember them all. Note that for Anycast, the TID is irrelevant because multiple nodes can originate an advertisement. It is relevant within the scope of one rover, but the rover is not propagated when there are multiple registrations for the same address. For instance, the 6LR, which receives 3 registrations for 3 6LNs which want to listen to the same Anycast. And that's 3 different rovers, and that cannot be circulated inside REPL. So the use of rover is not the same, and the use of TID is not the same. Basically, those things won't work for Anycast and multicast. What did I just say? Oh, yes, an important one is there is no instruction right now in the document about, in the case of Anycast, how a node will decide which child, or the root will decide which 6LR. Is there some stickiness based on the flow? Is there, pure round robin, pure random? That's not discussed. But what's discussed is, a node cannot source with an Anycast or a multicast address, which is just IPv6 architecture. Next slide. So last but not least, we have backward compatibility considerations because REPL is already widely deployed, in particular for YSUN, and it's always deployed with MOP1. So if we wanted to do this as an addition to an existing network, we have to do 2 things. We have to explain how it works in MOP1, and then we say, yes, it can work. But we have to basically tell the nodes that they have to support it because it's not REPL which will signal. REPL will signal MOP1 as opposed to MOP5. Next slide, please. And so where are we? The document was adapted. There's great progress in there. It's getting stable. We have to, I would say, finish it on the 6 low list, but would really appreciate comments from the role mailing list, CCing 6 low. And then we started discussing with the ADs about how we do this interaction between role and REPL. So that's work in progress, but Eric Klein should talk to Alvaro. And Eric also suggested talking to PM people to see exactly what kind of intersection we have there. And I'm done. Alvaro?
Hi. Yeah, so just to make sure what you just said there, to make sure I understand, you're basically eliminating the need to do MLD.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, so it was done in 2 steps because traditional ND requires MLD for even unicast addresses. You have to use MLD for the solicited node multicast address. It's a very crazy and complex operation. 8505 got rid of that. So a node that just does unicast with 8505 did not have MLD. And now we are removing MLD for multicast addresses.
No, I understand that. My next question is really, or the next observation is that, as we've discussed before, 8505 and all the other related IoT enhancements, neighbor discovery, and everything else not only apply to IoT networks, right? They can be used in any IPv6 network.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yes, you're correct throughout.
Right. So yeah, this obviously concerns me because I'm also the AD for PIM, and one of the things that PIM has in its plate is to move MLD v2 to Internet Standard.
Sorry, to move MLD what? Sorry, I missed that.
MLD, they're moving MLD to Internet Standard.
Well, yes. This thing does not mean MLD.
That doesn't mean, the fact that there are other solutions doesn't mean that MLD cannot be an Internet Standard, right? But yes, it would be great if they saw this and, I don't know, provided opinions or whatever. It may give them ideas on how to make MLD more efficient, or I don't know, whatever. But yes, so I searched the archives, and as far as I can see, PIM has not been made aware of this. Can you please, maybe you send an email to PIM, or I don't know if we need to get the 6LO chairs to do that.
I'd be glad to. Did PIM already meet this week?
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to be an email. But yes, we need to congregate with them, I guess. Yes, that would be neat. Yes, we're removing completely from the 6LN can do unicast and multicast without any MLD. That's really the bottom line.
Right. Correct. Okay. I mean, so at least if you can, I'll go talk to Eric as well. If you can just send a pointer to the PIM list, hey, take a look at this. See if there's any reaction. I mean, no need. I don't think that should result in any holding of the document or anything like that. But just to get your reaction from them would be good. At least just to make them aware.
Sure. And another hint is I have this draft at EVPN. I don't know if you're the AD for BES. I think not.
No, luckily no.
You're right. And well, BES also has a very complex story for multicast, and this makes it a lot simpler actually. So incorporating unicast, anycast, and multicast in the same interaction host to router would simplify the operation of the router to inject it in the VPN as well. So I plan to modify the draft that you see here to also suggest anycast and multicast.
And all we're doing, now that I see the word secure, all you're doing is multicast targets, not multicast sources.
Right. It's not source dependent. It's source independent only because we do that for REPL. So for now, there is no way to, in REPL or in 6LoWPAN, to say source dependent. Yes, it's completely source independent.
Okay. Thanks.
Michael, I mean, I don't know.
And Michael, do you want to?
Yeah. Hi. So I gave you my feedback on the 6LO list a couple weeks ago, and we had a brief conversation. And I guess the question I have is whether or not your document should be split into a 6LO and a role component. And what I'm really particularly interested in is whether or not the non-role parts of it will be easier to understand by others without the role if we do it that way. Or otherwise what happens is that the other people say, oh, well, this is just about role. Forget about that. I don't run role on my network, so I don't care. And I really think that for fear of violating the Russian proverb, good enough is better than perfect, right? Or whatever it goes. Perfect is the enemy of good enough. That's the proverb. That trying to do this in a more general way may actually sabotage us, and doing it in a more specific way is safer. So I feel two things about that, and I'm wondering where you feel on that scale now.
So I rejoined just to second what Michael was saying, because I think it's important for role to look at this document, deeply as well, right? It's fine, I guess, if 6LO owns the whole thing, if we don't want to break it up, but it definitely needs role review. This is something I'll also talk to Eric Klein about, but I guess Inez and Dominique, if you can also talk to the 6LO chairs to make sure that, we last call the document here as well, right? If it's going to have REPL elements in there, we need that to happen.
I'm not really concerned about that, Alvaro. I think that we'll get that anyway. But I'm actually more concerned about the opposite, which is that the non-role parts get review out to int area, and that they and as you said, PIM, okay, doing things that we really seriously consider this as a major that this is a major problem, I think, out there. I actually am debugging MLD issues across the too many 5 different vendors of switches connected together, and it doesn't work across it all. And so V6 doesn't work very well. And and we're going to have to throw out some equipment, right? So that's the only solution we have at this point. So nothing to do with protocols, except that, gosh, I wish it would go away and not be a problem, because it's not really helping me. And I don't think it's that I think that we need to move on to away from what I call layer 2 tricks to make this work and focus on layer 3.
Okay, thank you very much, Pascal and Michael. We need to move forward. We can take this to the mailing list, but yes, if this document have role topics, and if we do it in 6 law, we are going to ask review for role as well. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next slide. Tau projection, Pascal, please. Do you have?
Yes, so I
5 minutes.
only have 2 slides, so please, next slide.
Yes.
So I saw that the projection was on the agenda, but not really a full space for it. But I just, since a lot happened to it, I wanted to give a very short status. So basically, the last revision is now 21, and it bumped to 2 levels because of the interactions with Torles. Torles did an excellent, very, very deep, very complete line-by-line review of the document, both on content, functions and structure. So you'll see that the changes address very much everything of that. And I think it was really, really beneficial for the document. I hope it's much more readable for somebody who has not read it in the first place. So that's why I was asking Remus to hold his review till I published at least 20. But now, as you realize, it's ready, and I'm happy that you called for Remus RS to do his review, and Michael as well. That would be grand. Based on the comments by Torles and the revision, I'm personally happy to start workgroup last call anytime, because I think that really we've gotten where we wanted to be. And anywhere workgroup last call is not publication request, right? We still have to get reviews and feedback and solve the issues. So, I mean, if you want to delay the workgroup last call till other reviews, I'm fine. I'm also perfectly fine if Michael and Remus Aris do their review as part of the workgroup last call, because I think that the document is restructured and now hopefully much more stable. And I won't restructure it again. If you go to the next slide, you will see what happened. So here is what happened in one slide, because I didn't have 10 minutes. The introduction is much simpler, shorter, because we have a new section 3. Which basically was requested by Torles to explain the domain, explain what the requirement, why we are doing this, and what kind of use case, etc., how it's going to work. So all the context. So we have a large section 3 now, which reintroduces the story, and so the main introduction now became smaller. We have extended the projected DAO sections into a new section, actually, but we have extended it to do not only mostly the setup, but also everything about maintenance. We have moved the section 9 up in that new section 3 that I was discussing, which is basically all the context and goal of the document. So the whole section 9, example, track signaling, etc., has moved up. So you see what we're doing and why we're doing it before the how we are doing it. And there was some appendix text about use cases, applications, blah, and now this also moved up in the context and goal section. So you see this context and goal section specifies nothing, but gives a lot of information about what we are doing and why we are doing it. Top right, we have more terms now. You'll see that terminology as what I would call domain terminology. So terminology terms that are not necessarily defined by this document, but used by this document, coming from the general domain of the knowledge, the general knowledge of the domain. So they are now redefined, recited here. The section 3, or this big piece on the second from top right, new and move text. This is all this big new section 3 that I was talking about. You'll find particular 352 as new use cases for making more complex tracks. The protocol operation is now section 6, And as you can see with the second blue arrow on the bottom right, it's gotten bigger as well. It has all this information about all the steps for creating, setting up, destroying, maintaining tracks. And again, upon Torles' request, bottom right, you see, because Torres was asking, hey, we plan to use REPL. We do use REPL in the ANIMA ACP, the control plane. So how much does this apply to ANIMA? Because we would have needed it. And so I explained in that section now that it does indeed apply to use cases beyond IoT, and that's some things, basically some kind of modification extensions that we already did for ANIMA. You need this, you don't need that. So this is the result of the review by Torles. And hopefully it's a lot more readable and more complex because, Torles did not leave anything to magic. He wanted everything really completely specified. So I really appreciated his review, and I'm quite confident that we can go for last call, with this. But I'm okay. I mean, waiting for Remus and Michael as well. It's just your call. And I'm done. That was all my slides.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Pascal. Please go through the emails. To the tickets and close them if they are done. Okay, thank you. Conrad?
Yes, most of them were obsolete. I think we had that discussion earlier, but they were really, really old and obsolete. But if you want to have a call separately offline, we could briefly have a session together and just go through them.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, thank you. Conrad?
Yes, I'm here. Can everybody see me? Hear me at least?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ines. So I'm about to talk about the draft, RNFD draft. So as some of you may remember, it was submitted sometime in April. Then I presented it in August at the interim and just resubmitted to make it active. So what I did is mostly apply from the working group members. So they concerned like floating DODAX, virtual DODAC routes, and Sentinel selection. And also some minor like editorial comments by Michael and Pascal. And also I added one section which allows for activating and deactivating the protocol on demand. And I found this useful, like if you don't want to use it or want to, for instance, deactivate it because of, I don't know, high false positive rate or do some like emergency deactivation, then this is what it can be used for. So, so I think that the protocol now addresses all major comments. I also went through the talk during so the recording from the interim about Pascal's comments, and well, I think some of them are beyond the scope, and some of them, well, they cannot be like easily addressed. So especially about some parameters of the protocol being global. But I don't think that well they constitute much of a problem. So the question now is whether we want to adopt the draft or not, I guess. And if you have any further questions, then I can reply now or via email.
Pascal?
Yeah, yes. So, can you hear me? I'm getting echo.
There is echo.
Yeah.
Am I generating echo?
Yeah, I think both Conrad and Pascal are using loudspeakers, so you should mute one or the other.
Okay, so I reduce power. Yeah, and I'm not using my headset because it's wireless, and sometimes the mic goes brrr, and so it doesn't help a lot. So sorry, I did not move to your recommendation. So what I was saying is this is classical Byzantine general program, right? So you have to find an agreement between at least 2/3 of the intervenants to decide whether something is true or not. It's very hard program in general, and then we have this issue that you are trying not to go through the route, which makes the problem even harder because for many of those generals, only the root is available to talk between one another. So this is a hard problem. It's also a very important thing to solve. The nodes need to know if the root is still there, and they need to know rapidly. So I believe we need to adapt because we want this problem solved. But we want to be very, very sure that it's not because we are adopting this document that we are completely sure that the inceptions, the basic mechanism proposed here is the right one. There is a lot of art to resolve consensus, and that's exactly where this work falls in. It's consensus resolution. We need to make sure that we have explored, the best of that art with this particular problem that the root that is needed for building this consensus is effectively gone, which makes the problem even harder. So yes, on my side, I would say yes to approve, but to adopt, but not yes to put a final decision on the algorithm.
That would be fine. I can imagine that we can still correct the algorithms just like the initial, let's say, comment, and more specifically. So some issues are left out of the algorithm, like they are like external to the algorithm, and perhaps it would make sense to actually, for instance, to get rid of some of the parameters to actually include like routing through the root and so on. So yeah.
I think adopting doesn't mean we agree on the solution. Adopting means we agree that the working group wants to work on that topic. So this seems totally in line with both of you. Michael, you had a comment as well.
What you said is that I think that the documents should be adopted when they have a clear articulation of a problem, and I don't care whether the solution is sane or not. It's adoption is because the working group says, yeah, we got to solve this problem. And so I agree with you completely.
Thank you. So we're running short on time, but is there any strong objection here to adopt this document? If there's any, speak up now. Otherwise, we'll confirm on the mailing list as usual, but we're in a good way towards adoption, it seems. Okay, and then we'll take care of the other questions later on the mailing list. Ines, do you want to go to the last topic?
Yes, Pascal.
When we adopt, we also need to say, I would like to see if we adopt it for experimental or adopt it for start track. Probably experimental.
I don't know that we have to decide that at that point, do we? That's at any point before ISG submission, right?
I don't think we do, but it's good to know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And for about the next topic, the enrollment priority, we got a review from Conrad, where the Conrad proposed like 2 use cases, global and flexible, 2 no use cases, 2 different way of addressing. For global, we have this total control congestion, but load balancing. But for flexible, we did not find any use case so far. But for this document, we will need more reviews. And there are some open issues in GitHub. And then I think we can go through working group last call. Someone volunteered to review this draft. Yes,
So
Michael.
I'm just going to say that I think that probably the authors haven't really gotten together to discuss this enough, and we probably should do that, schedule something and do that. And I think it's fallen below the fold priority wise for us to review this. So clearly we want to have something in the solution, and it's possible that what we proposed is simply unworkable, but then I've heard other people say it's not a problem. So it might be that we have to go step back and try again with capabilities or something. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Pascal?
Yeah, I think, Michael, I think it's perfectly workable, and that we should ship it because again, Wyson is asking for it, and this draft fits what they want, and they have an operational understanding of what they want. So no, I don't think we went outside. The one thing that we missed was we at some point we thought that this value, this priority that we are mean priority that we're passing, should be changed on the way down, and that made it unworkable effectively. But if we agree that it's set by the root and just propagated without a change down, the DIOs, just what you expose on the beacon can be based on that and can be different from that. But at least it's going down unchanged. Then it's perfectly workable and perfectly useful.
I think that's what and I don't think we really got that clearly into the document, the last revision, but that's what I think we need to do. And if I just wasn't sure that the authors were all in consensus about this at this point, because I don't think we discussed it since last meeting.
I think we were, Michael. It's just memory, But my memory is that we were, and that we agreed that we don't modify the value as we go down. That was discussion at the last meeting.
Yep, that's what we discussed.
They believe that, seeing the discussion at the Wyson side, they really need the size of the DODAG expressed as number of routes. Blah. That's information that they do want. And so they are effectively eagerly waiting for this, just the same way that.
Well, then maybe we just need to ship it, is what you're saying. Is that there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I will get a new revision posted by the end of the month, and if that is good enough. Did we do a working group last call? Are we in the middle of a working group? No, we're not. We're just in the middle of nowhere.
We need one review more, but yes, with the new version, we can review that one and then go to the working group last call. But we need the reviews.
Great. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we have 2 minutes over the hour. Thank you. I think next other business. Thank you very much, all.
Yeah, I think we achieved good progress. Thank you very much, everybody, for your involvement. And let's get back on track.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. Talk to you
Bye-bye.
soon. See you soon.
Talk to you soon.